Hi, everybody. My name's John Young. I'm a volunteer fraud fighter with the AARP California Fraud Watch Network. And I want to welcome you to our second of four cyber chats. This is October, Cybersecurity Awareness Month, so it's very appropriate. Our topic today is going to be very, very interesting. It's going to be on artificial intelligence generated scams, AI scams. Everybody's been talking about those, so you're going to learn a lot today about that. Now, before I bring on our guests, we have a great panel today. I'm going to ask you a few things. It'll make it better for everybody. Please put yourself on mute. That way, we won't be hearing anything in the background. Also, we're going to have an interactive question session, which is putting away some time today so that you can ask our guests questions. So please enter your questions in the chat. And during the Q&A, we're going to be able to call on a few people. We're going to set some time aside for that, as I said. So AI, everyone's talking about it. What is artificial intelligence? You'll see it, you'll hear about it. AI is basically the next level of computer intelligence where the computers are actually learning from their mistakes. And it's great. We use it every day for lots of things, but it also is used by criminals. And we've got to be able to realistically figure out ways to block them. One of the most important ways is awareness. So we're going to make sure that you guys know what you can do and also help others. I like to say that I'm the sheriff of cybersecurity in California, but you all, I'm going to deputize you today. And what that means is that after our conversation, if you could help one or two or even more people that are in your family or your friend circle, that would be great, because that'll spread the word about how to protect ourselves against AI. And like I said, we have a great panel today. I'm going to introduce first off Mark Federhoff. He's with the AARP Fraud Watch Network. So Mark, can you please tell us a little about what you do?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much, John, and really look forward to having those conversations today about artificial intelligence and the different types of scams that we're hearing as part of the AARP Fraud Watch Network helpline. Important to know that the AARP has they obviously do lots of education and outreach on all the different types of scams going on out there. But in addition to that, we also have a Fraud Watch Network helpline, and that helpline is a big part of my job is making sure that we have volunteers who are willing and able to help all the people who've been victimized by scams out there as part of the helpline. And so just an important resource to know about, and that's a big part of the work that I do for AARP.
Great. We're going to ask you some really good questions that I think our audience is really hoping to get the answers for. That's why they're here. But right now I'm going to introduce our second guest, Ryan Kawamoto. Ryan, he's a regional program manager for Older Adults Technology Services from AARP, which we call OATS. Ryan, can you please talk a little about what you do?
Sure. Thanks so much, John. It's a real pleasure to be here today. Again, Ryan Kawamoto with Older Adult Technology Services, where we actually provide programming to empower older adults to use technology through Senior Planet from AARP programs. And this is where I'm excited to talk more about all the support services that we provide, including a national toll-free hotline. So much like the fraud telephone number, if you feel like you are getting scammed or you have any sort of technology question, you'll be able to call that. But I'll list that at a later point in the session today. Thanks so much, John.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. We're going to jump right in, folks, and start talking to Mark. I've got some hot questions I wanted to ask him, and we're going to jump right into it. So, Mark, what are the most common scams that people are calling into in California?
Yeah, I was just going through kind of the most common scams that we're hearing about on the helpline in terms of victimization. And I'll tell you, so far in 2024, we've got over 2,100 scams alone being reported from California. So that's a big, big number. And I'll tell you the most common one that we're hearing about right now, and I'll say it's in California and everywhere else in the country, is identity theft. And so when I'm talking about those 2,100 scams that we have taken on the helpline, 1/3 of those have just been on identity theft alone. And so I talk about identity theft a lot right now. And I'll just tell you, so many people are calling us because they receive data breach notifications and other type of notifications that, or indications that something is wrong with their identity. And I'll just say, it's a really important step right now to make sure that you're being proactive about identity theft. And so when I'm saying that, I'm talking about checking your annual credit report, placing fraud alerts, credit freezes, checking your accounts, because it really is kind of the trending topic that we're hearing about right now on our helpline in terms of the victims that we're hearing from. I'm going to just talk about a couple of the other most common ones we're hearing from California: imposter business scams and names of businesses like Amazon and names of businesses like PayPal, large banks, other types of large entities like that we're used to seeing a lot. That's another really common scam that we're hearing about from Californians right now. The third most common one, tech support scams. And tech support scams, if you get a phone call from someone saying they're with Microsoft or Apple or HP printer support, or you get a pop-up on your screen, those are the type of scams I'm talking about. And I know those resonate with a lot of people because it's a very common scam attempt we hear about. Number 4, online dating and romance scam. And we'll talk about this, I think, with a little bit relation to artificial intelligence too. And we'll talk about some of the other ones too and how they might relate to artificial intelligence as well. But just know there's a lot of those out there too. And then the fifth most common one, fraudulent sales. And so fraudulent sales, a lot of the times scammers are generating fake websites and trying to sell folks different types of items. An example that we have a lot of from the last couple of years are scammers who are creating fake websites for selling puppies or selling kitties, those types of things. And so we get a lot of reports about that type of a thing on the helpline right now.
Well, Ryan, you basically teed me up for the next question. How are criminals using AI, artificial intelligence, for these run-of-the-mill scams that we've been seeing for years, but are now much more dangerous now that they're using AI? Can you talk a little about that, please?
Yeah, thanks for the question, John. So, I think there are quite a few risks to older adults when it comes to scamming and the sophistication now of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence can now mimic human voices. They can mimic images and writing in convincing ways. It makes frauds and scams easier to deploy on a smaller, larger scale than what we've seen before. Mark mentioned this, but I feel there are a couple different scams out there. One is, phishing attacks. So using AI, scammers can now personalize phishing emails with intimate dialogue and bypass spam filters, making it harder to distinguish between a genuine and fraudulent communications. In the past, we've actually done a Senior Planet Explore Tech lecture, which is one of our 1-hour presentations where we walk through how to protect your personal information online. And it used to be that it'd be very easy to see typos. You would see, something like the grammar wouldn't always be correct. But now with AI, we're seeing a lot more sophistication in how language is being presented and a lot less typos. Some other scams that we have seen have been family emergency scams, where scammers will clone a family member's voice and use a deep face image to impersonate a loved one who claims they're in danger and need money. And, for this scam, part of the success is the urgency behind it, right? And of course, your emotions tied to that loved one. And then, as Mark just mentioned, romance scams. AI can be used to create fake profiles on dating websites and social media platforms. There are AI-powered chatbots now that can simulate realistic conversation to build trust, with the goal of tricking the potential, individual into sending money. And then artificial intelligence can also amplify ageism and negatively impact care if development data reflects age-related bias and stereotypes, right? That's been an issue too of how AI is being, all the information that's compiling from the internet to generate an image, to generate information, all that is based on existing information. And there are biases that are in that information, so to be mindful of that. And then, there's some risk related to not understanding how older adults can use technology related to age bias in developing AI and, potentially deepening a digital divide that we're seeing with older adults and the general population. Just one thing to note, AI systems do collect high volumes of personal information, and that can be a concern for older adults who can be vulnerable to fraud or identity theft. And it's just one thing I'll mention later too, is to just be mindful of when you enter a prompt. Be careful of the information that you're sharing, because in some ways you might just consider the information you're sharing is going to be public. Even if a company says it might be kept private, just be aware that you're putting that information out there. So for example, I've heard some participants that are using AI to clean up their resume. So they'll put the entire resume in the prompt and ask it to clean it up. One recommendation might be just to do one section, or make sure that when you upload your resume, you're not putting a lot of personal information like your name or address, and just general bullet points. And I'll stop there.
Okay, Ryan. Well, thank you. I'm going to jump back to Mark, because Mark, you've been doing this for 15 years, right? Can you tell me how your philosophy has evolved over the years, now that in the last 2 years or so, AI has really jumped into the picture with both feet?
Yeah, thanks for that, John. I think that, one of the things, we've been using artificial intelligence for a very long time. And it shows up in different ways in our life. And, whether it's finishing my sentence or finishing my text message or generating my name or generating my email, I mean, I really appreciate those kind of things that artificial intelligence does for me. And I'm sure many of the people who are listening today do as well, because it means we don't have to type things out. I think one of the important things to think about when we're thinking about artificial intelligence, in my mind, is a little bit counterintuitive, because I think in a lot of senses, artificial intelligence makes things a lot easier. And so we're like, okay, that computer's thinking for me, that type of a thing. And in our mind, we're thinking, this is really great because I don't have to take all these extra steps I might have to take otherwise. But I think the most important thing now that artificial intelligence is encroaching more on our lives is that we have to actually think more about what we're seeing and what we're hearing to make sure that whatever those things that we're seeing and hearing are actually falling in line with what reality is. And so I'll give you an example. I'm a big football fan. You can see I have some football stuff in my background here. But one of the artificial intelligence items that I see on social media right now is like you're watching a football game, and after the football game, they have a press conference with all of the kind of coaches and players and that type of a thing. A lot of the things that people who think they're very funny are doing right now is inserting words into the mouth of that football player or that coach to make it look like they're saying something that they want them to say, but they're actually not saying that at all. If you watch the real press conference. And so this is just one example of where, again, I have to think back, and I'm thinking, is what I'm saying what I actually think that guy was going to say after the football game, or is it just what a guy who thinks, who's manipulating that video thinks is funny? And so I think one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that artificial intelligence, though it might help us in a lot of places, we might actually have to think more about what's being said or what we're seeing than we did before, just to make sure it kind of aligns with reality, if that makes sense.
It looks a lot cleaner too. As Ryan had mentioned, the AI is helping take out some of the red flag mistakes that we would see on things like emails, and the grammar would be so poor that we knew it was definitely a scammer that was trying to do something, or language was so like old-fashioned to say, using phrases no American would use in the last 20 or 30 years. So you've given us some really interesting reactive incidents, basically, and a little proactive stuff. So that's why I'm going to go to Ryan right now, because Ryan, he works to empower the older adults to use technology on how to fight these AI issues. So Ryan, I'm going to ask you, a lot of our viewers are new to technology or not basically at a very high level, because we're older adults, we're late to the technology a lot of times. So if you could please, when I'm going to ask you, talk about some of the AI scams and what older adults can do. And if you could just talk about it as simply as possible. First, if you could explain a prompt, okay? If you're talking about the tools, what is a prompt?
Yeah, thanks so much, John, and great question. I'll just share a quick anecdote that I was actually recently in Maui in partnership with AARP Hawaii, where we did one of our sessions on, is this AI? And it was an hour-long presentation where in real time we used a website, deepai.org, and there's an option to do an image generator on that website. And within that image generator, that's where exactly your question of there's a bar where you can actually enter a text prompt. And we asked the audience, is there anything that they'd like to see? Would they like us to generate any sort of image? And it being Maui and Oprah being a resident, the audience was like, hey, we want to see Oprah eating popcorn. And so it was really powerful because there were a couple gasps in the room where I was able to type in the prompt, Oprah eating popcorn, literally. And that image on the left-hand side popped up. And you can see it's clearly Oprah as we know her. You can see her fingers with the popcorn are a little bit off, but this literally was generated in 5 seconds. Then, so there was a gasp in the room when they're like, wow, this AI generator can do some pretty powerful stuff. And again, as I mentioned before, what that picture is being generated by all sorts of information online that's been compiled to know Oprah, to have seen pictures of Oprah, to then create that image. Within a matter of
Now,
seconds, oh, sorry.
yeah,
John.
I was going to say, the interesting thing though is how she has 2 left hands, right? On the
Right,
picture on the
right.
right.
Yeah, and
That's
so
one of the downfalls of AI, if people don't catch it, is that it's not accurate a lot of times. Can you go into that, please?
yeah, absolutely. And so the first gasp was in just showing how quickly we could create an image of Oprah that's fake using a text prompt. And I encourage anyone to go to deepai.org. Not that I, encourage the website, but just if you're interested, you can type in any sort of prompt and experiment yourself to see what images will pop up within 5 seconds of you writing a prompt. And it can be anything from a Reuben sandwich that a dog is eating, right? Or a chocolate bar made out of water. You can type in any sort of prompt and AI will generate. Well, the next gasp in the room then was being able to click on that same image generated button again, where another image of Oprah appeared. And then I clicked on it in another 5 seconds and another image appeared. But over time, then we started to get a picture like the one on the right, where she has 3 arms or 3 hands. And so it's to say that right now, and you mentioned this before, that usually for older adults, it might be that if they're retired or they've been out of the workforce, they're no longer having to use technology every day as part of a work or part of their everyday life. And that then means that there might be a gap in information. And this is where Senior Planet comes in to provide over 200 different topics of 40 to 60 sessions every week on our website. And that'll be listed later, seniorplanet.org, where everything we offer is free. And you can just log in over Zoom, where you can then log into a session on a given topic that might be of interest to you. Actually, the next slide. Yeah. And so if there's any takeaway from today, it's please visit seniorplanet.org, where you can see all of our different sessions. And we actually have 7 different top sessions right now, specifically focused on different topics related to AI. And much like some of the information I just presented, these sessions will go over in detail information that you should be aware about related to AI, whether it be what is an image generator, what is a prompt, how to identify AI. And so again, all those sessions are free and on our website, seniorplanet.org. The flip side of that, though, is let's say you're new to technology. Let's say you're not, well-versed in using the internet or going online. Please know that you can call our Senior Planet National Toll-Free Hotline for free technology support. And that's available Monday through Friday if you're on the West Coast in California Pacific time from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Saturdays. And that toll-free telephone number is 888-713-3495. And again, if you just, let's say you didn't write down that number, know that if you go to seniorplanet.org, that number is always listed at the top of our website. And you can always talk to a live staff person. And going back to what Mark was saying, let's say you're involved in a scam right now, or something's questionable where you got an email. You can either call the fraud hotline where they can give you immediate support. You can also call our Senior Planet hotline where we'd be able to help you with the tech related to, should you be downloading a new operating system on your phone because you just got a message, or is it a scam? We can help walk through some of that. And so this is where our Senior Planet hotline, if there's any takeaway from today, it's please know that you can call that number for free support. But the final piece is just to say that going back to Oprah, the fact that we can generate images so quickly within the matter of 5 seconds, and know that then when that's connected to a scam and generating information related to a scam, it's really powerful. And this is where right now it's just so important that our participants are aware of resources and are aware of what's out there. And it doesn't mean that it's foolproof and you're going to be fully protected, but it means that it just might lead to that question, if you think you're involved in a scam right now, to reach out to get further information.
Okay, Ryan, I'm going to stick with you for another question here, because I've taken generative AI courses myself, but when someone's hearing you talk about the OATS, older adult intro to technology and some of these tools and programs, the question that comes to my mind, and I'm sure it comes to a lot of people's minds in our audience, is, okay, image generation, like making a picture, that's fun, but what use is that to an older adult to use AI themselves?
Great question. And we've seen a lot of benefits from AI. AI, it can help, as we were just talking about, while it can help scammers write more efficient emails, it can also help any other individual write emails. We've seen huge benefits for older adults in general. It's changing many fields of human endeavors, whether that be public health, medicine, physiotherapy, other health services. It can enable independence and enhance the quality of life for older adults. And so while I do want to say, be mindful when using AI and sometimes, and try to be careful in moving forward, there are many, many benefits to any tool, right? They've shown that AI can improve clinical depression support systems to provide help with guidance on medical decisions. It can improve drug development and support the personalization of treatments and care management. It can also predict health risks and events and generate patient-specific risk scores for falls and conditions like dementia. It can monitor and support early diagnosis of disease. And also we're looking at a lot of AI-powered robotics, virtual assistants that will also be able to help older adults, including wearable technologies, smartwatches. You might have just seen Tesla did a huge event recently where they just released and showcased this robot that might be assistance in the home for many older adults or families at large. But going back to, John, what you're asking, when it comes to the everyday usage of AI, it's the imagination's the limit, right? It can be that, hey, you wanted to send a quick email and you need help of just how to phrase it so that the email doesn't come across as harsh. You can literally put in a prompt to ask that you change the tone of the email. It could be that you're throwing a fun party and it's a movie event related to Oprah. You can use one of those images, hopefully not one with the 3 hands, but you can actually generate an image to put in that invitation. There are all sorts of creative ways to use AI. And even in this recording right now of this session, we could use AI to actually take the information that we're conveying in the session, create a transcript, create notes, then actually create a summary of everything that we've just discussed here. So AI can be a very, very powerful tool. And what we're saying at Older Adult Technology Services is just to be mindful of using this technology, much like any other technology out there. And that's not to say that OATS is encouraging the use of AI or saying, hey, you need to use this. It's to say, just know that this technology exists and that be mindful and have the vocabulary and the tools to know that if you decide to use it, there's just some things that you should be aware of.
Hey, thank you, Ryan. You've actually set up another question I have for Mark. Now, when it comes to using AI, if it's for a criminal, can you tell us just a few of the scams, or basically how we can look for signs to see that the things that they're sending us, whether it's text or emails or links to videos or whatever, how can we tell that they've been manipulated by criminals using AI?
Yeah, definitely. Well, and John, I'll just tell you, on the FraudWatch Network helpline, we have not received a lot of calls where someone or a victim of a scam is saying that they have been targeted by a criminal who they believe is using artificial intelligence as a way of manipulating them. And so, not to say that that's not happening, but I think it's either not been identified in many situations, or it's not being fully used kind of to the extent that it might be talked about in kind of a negative way. I will say the ones that we have heard where someone has called us. One example is what we call a deep fake of Elon Musk saying that, essentially reaching out to someone personally and telling them in a video that they should invest money with him. And so again, it's one example, and I think it's more about taking a step back and thinking about the plausibility of the offer, like we do most scams, rather than even just thinking about what it's saying, because the deep fake could have been very sophisticated. I did not see the actual deep fake, but it was described to us in that situation. And I would just say, again, Elon Musk is not out hunting for $25,000 or $30,000 from everyday Joe, you and me. He's dealing in billions of dollars. And so you're thinking about the messages. And so when we're talking about scams, it's again taking a step back and thinking, is this a reasonable offer? Is this a rational offer? Why is Elon Musk reaching out to me? And thinking about the red flags. How is he asking me to pay? How is he communicating with me? And again, even if it's a really well done and generated artificial intelligence deepfake of Elon Musk, it's again about taking a step back and thinking about the red flags of every other scam that you might be dealing with. I will say personally that I think that kind of artificial intelligence is going to play heavily kind of in the celebrity space, just because there are celebrities who have recognizable voices. There's lots of images and videos out about certain celebrities. I personally think about celebrities with really recognizable voices, like a Morgan Freeman and a Dolly Parton, and thinking Dolly Parton does a lot of charity work. And so it's very plausible that someone could come up with a really tricky Dolly Parton deep fake that again is using her voice, is using her images. But again, thinking about how will Dolly Parton reach out to me personally? How are they communicating, and how are they asking me to pay? If they're asking me to pay with the gift cards and cryptocurrency and peer-to-peer payment apps, that's a bright red flag of a scam. And again, if you want to give money to Dolly Parton's charity, reach out directly. Don't wait for her to contact you. And so thinking about those types of kind of tried and true red flags of scams, I think is critically important when we're starting to think about artificial intelligence and how it might be used. And instead of waiting for these types of things to happen, just use our critical thinking skills like I was talking about before.
Now I'm going to stay with you right now, Mark, for this follow-up question, because I think you led into it on a couple of your answers. Now, our audience is very well familiar with the tried and true getting a phone call. We call them grandparent scams, that the granddaughter's been kidnapped, the grandson is in jail, the granddaughter's car's broke down, they need money because they're in a remote area. So can you please just explain a little how artificial intelligence has enhanced the grandparent scams?
Yeah, and I totally think it has the ability to enhance these type of scams, especially when you think about the amount of content that's out there on social media. And so hypothetically, if you get a grandparent scam, I don't know if any of you saw this movie called Thelma. It's a really good movie that's about a grandparent scam where the 92-year-old or 94-year-old grandma goes after the criminal, actually. But in that instance, like, artificial intelligence was not used, but at the same time, the ability to take, if someone was spear phishing that person and able to, again, find out who their relatives are, find out who the grandson is or granddaughter is, find their content on social media, it could be on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. They'd have a way of potentially manipulating their voice, so it sounds like the grandson or granddaughter. How to potentially, again, use like an image, like the Oprah image, but again, manipulating it in a way where they might look like they're in a bad situation or may have just gotten an accident, that type of a thing. So I think there's lots of possibilities. I think people are very worried about this because, even though honestly, we haven't heard any situations yet on our helpline where the grandparent scam has been definitely used as part of these scams. But I think it makes people very concerned because this scam's working without artificial intelligence. And then you start thinking about how difficult it might be to identify with artificial intelligence, and it makes people very concerned. And I'll say a lot of the times when the voice doesn't sound correct, in those situations, they say, oh, I've got a cold, or I was just in a wreck and I'm all shaken up and my voice doesn't sound exactly right. And those are reasonable things, reasonable excuses. But at the same time, if that voice is cloned in the same way, it's one less question that the person on the other end of the line might be asked.
What steps do you advise people on the helpline that you can pass on to our viewers to take if they get one of these grandparent calls and they're told, don't call the police, don't call your family? What are the steps that they should do?
Yeah, there's a couple of different tactics that people use. There's not a tried and true way because this is a really tricky scam because it really pulls upon the emotions of people who are in that scam. And so again, they're trying to get you not to use your being a reasonable, rational person and just act on your emotions because you're concerned a family member is in trouble. And so a lot of people will have some type of a password with their family that they will use. And so if that kind of thing does come up, they're going to say, okay, what was the name of your dog when you were 8? And there's only one person that's going to know that answer to that question. And in different situations, I often tell people, because there are a lot of people who call us just worried that they might get that call. I will tell you, peppering the person on the other end of the line with questions that they couldn't answer usually ends up in a hang up as well. And so in those situations, if you keep asking them, so what did we do last Christmas? What'd you get? What did I get you? And about the third question is when that scammer is going to hang up. So it's an interesting dynamic because, again, people aren't thinking with their brain, they're thinking with their heart as part of this scam. But at the same time, take a deep breath. Scammers don't want you to think about anything for more than a second, and they don't want you to verify it with others. So if you can pick up another phone and also call someone else who can verify where your grandson or granddaughter would be at that same time too, that's also a really good tactic to use. Just again, I know that you don't want to kind of sever that tie if you're the only kind of lifeline for that person in that situation.
Thank you, Mark. I think you gave some great advice there. I'm going to jump over to Ryan. And Ryan, you've been describing the sessions that Senior Planet offers to older adults. Can you just let our audience kind of feel what the Senior Planet experience is from the moment they sign up to after they do the actual session? Walk us through it, please.
Yeah, thanks so much, John. And so again, all of our programming is on www.seniorplanet.org. And on that website, you'll be able to find a drop-down menu to take all of our online courses, which again, I mentioned before, is over 200 different topics ranging from what is a podcast, how do I subscribe, what is how do I use YouTube, right? How do I talk to my doctor over Zoom? The 7 specific courses that we have on AI, and we're actually working on some further courses right now, our sessions. The first one is AI all around. And as Mark mentioned, we're already using AI, right? But how do you know what is AI and what isn't? So this session is really focused on, the different everyday uses that AI is already being integrated into our lives. We have a session on AI and disinformation, especially as we get closer to the election. There's a lot of deepfake information out there. How do you verify that information? Oates actually has a partnership with the News Literacy Project, where they're doing phenomenal work in allowing and providing resources related to misinformation and identifying disinformation. And then AI image generators, as I showed the pictures of Oprah, and there was a question in the chat related to what prompts are we talking about? And it really depends on what platform you're using. I had just mentioned deepai.org, but even if you go to ChatGPT, you'll see that in all these software platforms that you go to their website, there'll be a search engine where you can type in a prompt. And so for most of these AI platforms, it's really interactive, right? Where you're providing information, you're asking or requesting information. And so that's what I mean by the prompt, that there's a search bar where you can type in text. And that's, just like the AI image generator, there'll be a search bar where you can type in what you're looking for. Everyday uses of AI, intro to AI, so walking through the basics, intro to chatting with AI, and is that AI, helping to identify AI. So if you go to our website, seniorplanet.org, if you go to the drop-down menu to go to online classes, you'll be able to either search and you can type in any of these titles, or you can just type in AI, and it should pop up with all of our different sessions that we're offering, in addition to all sorts of other sessions, like I mentioned, how to protect your personal information online. That has been one of our most popular sessions. Each session is about an hour long. One thing to note is that we offer Explore Tech lectures and Explore Tech workshops. Both are an hour long, but an Explore Tech lecture tends to be a live trainer, one of our instructors, presenting information that tends to be one way. It's a PowerPoint, they're going through slides, and they're communicating information. And there'll usually be about 15 minutes at the end for question and answer. That's an Explore Tech lecture. So for example, with Facebook, it's, what is Facebook? You've been hearing about this platform. What is your feed? How do you connect with others, right? All that information is in that presentation. A workshop is going to be much more or action-oriented. And so it means that we'll have a session on how to create a Facebook account. So within that hour, then you'll actually do something. And by the end of that hour, you'll hopefully have created an account. So again, our Explore Tech lectures are much more informational. They don't require registration if it's an Explore Tech lecture, but if it is an Explore Tech workshop, because it's interactive and we want to provide customized support, we sometimes will require registration. But all that information, all those instructions will be on our website related to that event posting. So just even later today or tomorrow, if you're interested in attending one of these sessions, please visit seniorplanet.org. Search AI or look through our calendar of events on our online classes. And then at the time, you just click on the link that will enter you into a Zoom session. We do have a waiting room just to protect our participants, and then you'll be led into the general room at the beginning of the class time.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. I actually want to throw in a comment from my own personal life. I've used the AI tools to enhance my resume myself, because I don't know if our audience, if everyone's aware of it, but employers are getting thousands and thousands of resumes from candidates and all kinds of information. No human being could keep up with it. The staffs would be overwhelmed. So what they do is they have the computers using AI basically to filter out what resumes make the grade and what should just get, discarded or ignored. So through using the AI, I asked the AI to basically take my resume and make it so that it would be as successful, as close to 100% as possible. And then I ran it through some of the online ones. And of course, the score was much, much higher because the AI helped me to beat the AI, in other words. Now, have you heard, can you just give us one success story, Ryan, from the classes that you've heard of, or any feedback that you've heard that someone said really helped them quite a bit?
I'll be honest in saying that our trainers are really on the front lines getting that information. In that one session that I attended in Maui, though, we got a lot of questions after. I think just a basic success story from that event was people coming up to us after the session to say, I didn't know this even existed. I didn't even know AI was part of my everyday life. Thank you for presenting this information because now I'm aware. And now I know if something comes up to maybe question it, to ask it. If I see something online, if I see something on TV, maybe I should question it. And I think that in itself is a win because at the end of the day, AI is going to evolve. And right now, I showed that picture of Oprah with 3 hands, but the way that AI is evolving so quickly and learning so quickly, it might be even a few months from now or a year where AI is so clean, you won't get those issues anymore with those hands. And at that point, how do we recognize, how do we identify AI, right? And so I would like to say that I do believe that AI is an equalizer right now. I think we mentioned earlier that older adults, at least the participants that we've worked with, sometimes they've not used technology in a long time because they haven't been required to. Now they're being reintroduced to technology, and now they're identifying there's a gap there where they might need to brush up on some skills. The thing with AI is that I would say it's an equalizer. AI is new to everyone right now. And it means that we're all trying to figure it out. We're all trying to learn the capabilities, the benefits, the negatives to it all. But at the very end of the day, I would just say and ask all of our audience members today to be proactive in constantly learning about the information that's out there.
Great. Well, that was a nice segue into our next session. You and Mark have given us a lot of information about AI, artificial intelligence, the pluses, the minuses in a short period of time. So I want to give a significant amount of time to our audience to ask questions of you guys while we have you here. So Strat, Marissa, can we please go to the questions and bring in our first viewer?
Sure. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to invite Karen Foreman to come on and ask us. She has a question about passkeys and voice cloning. Karen, would you like to unmute yourself and come on and ask your question?
Hi, Karen. Welcome.
Okay. I'll ask Karen's question while she's trying to get off mute.
Thank you, Strat.
So her question is, can you go over passkeys and voice cloning concerns? She heard that you should have a private safe word amongst your family to verify it's them. I guess that relates to the grandparenting scam, something that you've touched on already.
Yes.
But I think the voice cloning and the passkeys would be good to address.
Excellent. So I could actually take that one. Okay, folks, anytime that something is on YouTube or Facebook, that's a video that was recorded, a scammer can use AI, voice cloning, they call it, and use the voice recording from that video. And I'm actually very good with that myself. I could write sort of like a movie script, take anybody's voice, like Strat has a wonderful radio announcer voice. I could take Strat's voice and I could have Strat saying anything I want from a script, and his family would think it was Strat saying it or people at work. So that basically is the voice cloning. They will take a recording from a video and they'll train, they call it train the AI. The AI will absorb that recorded voice, and then the AI will say in that person's voice, in the example I gave Strat's, whatever they want it to say. So it sounds very lifelike. So, okay, so next question, Strat. Thank you,
Thank
Karen.
you. I'm sitting over here blushing at the compliment. Thank you very much, John. If you could see me. All right. So I'd like to invite Don E to come on. He has a question about emails. Don, would you care to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Oh, sure. Is it true that if you set your email to not load the images or remote content automatically, the sender will not know that you sent the email to a valid account?
Can you clarify that, please?
So
I understand the first part. So
yeah, when you open an email,
you open an email, but you're saying what are the setting on the account and
you
who is the?
You can set your email up not to load the images.
Okay, so
automatically.
what is the result? You don't want
Because
anything being sent back to someone that you opened it, like a receipt?
Correct. Well, it sends
Okay.
back the information that you have opened the email and it is a valid
Yeah,
account.
they call that a return receipt, that you've opened it and you've read it. Okay, so Mark, have you seen that?
I honestly can't speak to that for sure. I don't know, Ryan, you have?
In our sessions, we've pretty much have said to be really careful that if you don't recognize an email address, to be very careful not to click on it. So it doesn't really answer your question about actually
Right.
loading
This would
information,
be
but-
after you open the email and
Right.
you haven't even read it yet, and it'll send back a response back to the sender that you've opened it because it's loading images from that sender.
Yeah, well, to answer your question, Donnie, if you've set it to no return receipt, then it won't do it. So no one will get that. A lot of people want to know when you read their email so that people can't deny that they read the email. You know, it's nothing to do with criminals or scamming, but I've seen this in the work environment where someone wants to have validation that, okay, I gave them 24 hours notice. They opened it this time. There's a timestamp, and I got the receipt returned to me. But if there's a setting on your email, not all of them have it, but if you've already set it to say that there's no return receipt, then there will be no return receipt. So they will not know. That's the answer. Thank you, Don. Next question, please, Strat.
Okay, let's go to Bill Murat. Apologies if I mispronounced your last name. You have a question about software used to generate the Oprah picture.
Well,
Bill, you want-
I put several questions into the chat, so I'm going to roll them all up into one question. I realize
Good.
this
Thank you, Bill.
presentation. I realize that this presentation is about being on the receiving end of the bad guys. I mean, they're using AI to do bad things to me. However, during the course of the presentation, you've talked several times about how you use AI. For example, you used AI to generate pictures, or it has helped you to write emails, or it has helped you to create documents, or it has helped you to create a resume. So that naturally generates a question in my mind of how I can use AI to help me. Because
Great.
when I write emails, I use Gmail, which never helps me. And when I write documents or resumes, I use Microsoft Word, which never helps me. And when I create PowerPoint presentations, it never helps me. And I never create photographs, so nothing ever helps me. And plus, you guys have been using the word prompt, like, it will prompt you. It will prompt you. Well, question is, who's prompting you? What will prompt you? ChatGPT? Who's generating the pictures? ChatGPT? Who's helping
Yes.
you with your
Let me-
emails? Gmail?
Thank you, Bill.
What software
I
is helping
will-
you do all these things?
Thank you, Bill. I'll take it and then I'll give it over to Ryan. But yes, you asked about the resume. What I did was I did my original resume in Word, like you did it. But then what I did was I went into ChatGPT. There's, for whoever has ChatGPT or is familiar, it sounds like you're familiar with it. There's a plus button in there where you can pull in a document. So, or a picture. And I pulled in the document of my resume and I just said to the ChatGPT, this individual's resume needs to be enhanced to bypass the AI automated scanning system for resumes. What can make it more successful?
Okay.
And then I hit enter. And
right.
that's how it works. First, you import the document just by hitting the plus sign.
I get
and
it. That answers the question.
Then you put in a text. Thank you, Bill. And
I get it.
Ryan, if you
but
could,
how do you generate photographs?
Yeah.
Ryan's going to answer that one. Thank you, Bill.
And Bill, thank you so much. And sorry that, I was just throwing around the use of AI tools without actually naming them. I actually pulled up on one of our handouts. And we tend to focus on the most, the AI platforms that have the most market share that our older adult participants are most likely to use. We also tend to focus on platforms that are most accessible or affordable to participants. So some of those include OpenAI, which is ChatGPT. You can actually sign up for a free OpenAI account to start using ChatGPT, where you can, as we're talking about, put in your prompt. And that you can do a search, but it's openai.com where you can sign up for an account. There's also DALL-E, which you can use the same login that you create for ChatGPT. And that's also AI. Microsoft has a Copilot and Edge or any browser. So it's copilot.microsoft.com where you can use artificial intelligence. Google also has their own AI, which is Gemini.google.com. And this is again where if you want to experiment today, the session has piqued your interest, you can go to ChatGPT or any of these platforms, type in any sort of prompt. So for example, some prompts that we've presented on are, you're looking for a gift idea. You're trying to organize your thoughts. You're looking for resources. You're looking for a simple explanation for a variety of topics. You can put those into the prompt.
But if I wanted to generate a picture of Oprah eating popcorn, which one would I use?
Yeah, and so that's where we use deepai.org. And also you can go online, Google, and you can type in artificial intelligence image generator, right? You can also call our hotline, and they can offer some advice too, or walk through real time, having you go online at different sites.
How did you spell Dal? You mentioned Dal E. How do you spell
Yeah,
it?
so that
How do
is
you
DALL
Yep.
hyphen E.
say that again? DAL?
DALLE hyphen E. So doll, DALL hyphen E.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, sure.
Great. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Ryan. I think we have time for maybe one, possibly 1.5 questions, Strat.
Sure, I'm gonna invite, excuse me, I'm gonna invite Richard on, and he has a question about how his information is being used, where it's being found, and how it's being used in AI engines. So Richard, would
All
you
right.
care to unmute yourself?
Yep. Welcome, Richard.
Hello, glad to be here.
Welcome.
So I'm interested, our information is being gathered through all kinds of businesses and websites. Some of them nefarious and most of them not though. But some of that information is being shared with generative AI engines, which can be used, then scammers can use that information against us. Can you talk to that point a little bit?
Yeah, I can take that one, you guys. There's a huge controversy because, as Richard said, the generative AI tools, in this case, I'll talk about ChatGPT, it has to have a knowledge base on which to build to be able to answer people's questions. So there's a huge controversy about the fact that it sucked in the books of, say, Hemingway, all the works of Shakespeare, all of Isaac Asimov's science fiction works, as far as all the screenplays ever done too, right? So who owns that copyright? Well, that copyright is whoever had developed the original information. So right now, they're getting licensing or being sued by the original content creators. So one of the problems is say, Richard, you ask ChatGPT a question, or you say, write me a poem. You can actually do that. You could give it a few words. I want a poem for my wife for our 50th anniversary, and we were in Montreal. So you add that in there. You just type in a question. Please write a poem about our 50th anniversary in Montreal for my wife. And it'll actually give you a 10, 12 sentence poem. Now, the thing is, ChatGPT isn't thinking of all that itself. It's pulling in bits and pieces of recognizable poems that have come out there from poets that have written it. Same thing with screenplays. If you ask it to write a screenplay, or if you ask it to help you do a research assignment, it's not thinking of all this stuff itself. It's actually pulling in the copyrighted works of other people. So that's actually a big problem with artificial intelligence, is it has all of the libraries, basically, as informations around the world, or it can pull it in, but it's not crediting the actual authors themselves. So that is where the structure comes in. That's where the output of the content is to you, Richard, is stuff that isn't original and isn't, in most cases, being credited to the original author. So I hope that answered your question. But it's being used by businesses. It's being used by producers who are writing scripts that they don't want to hire the screenwriters, say. They'll have a script written by AI. And the AI is building this screenplay on other screenplays. So that's a real problem. Also, voice, too. Voice actors, they're finding that the voice cloning is being used of their voices, and it's actually, you could do an animation and have this person's voice in there. So I hope that answered your question, Richard. We're
Oh,
about to close out,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
thank you very much. Strat, I want to thank you, Marissa, of course, for your help. I obviously want to thank our two guests, and basically, Mark, you gave some great insight for the helpline. And Ryan, you talked about how Oates and the Senior Planet are helping people with dealing with newer technology. So we had the reactive approach to people being scammed, and for a change, we kind of had a proactive approach to what people can do. So I wanted to thank both of you so much. It's been a real pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much. Thank our guests. Thank people who asked us such great questions. And I want to let you all know that there's a couple things that you can do. And one of them is you can go to aarp.org/CA for California, and you could sign up for our next 2 sessions for cyber chats. And the third one next week is going to be on keeping our devices, like our phones, our tablets, computers, protected from scammers and these people, criminals who are doing all this fraud. And we also have our Fraud Watch network. That's the tip line and the helpline 877-908-3360, 877-908-3360, or you can visit us online at aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. And my name is John Young, and I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. And I really hope that you got something out of it today. And if you can join us for our next 2 sessions next week and the week after, we really look forward to seeing you. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care and have a wonderful cyber safe day. Bye-bye.